and thank you so much for having us here today. We're really excited to be in Seoul. Never been here before, so yeah, thanks for making this happen. Today I'm going to talk a bit about, why for us. So I'll talk about who we are, what we work on, but also why for us, based on, all the work that we've done over the past over 2 years, why Polkadot is so exciting. Why, as developers, for us, this is extremely liberating in terms of the things we're going to be able to build, not only for our clients, but for ourselves as well. So yeah, if you want to send me an email, my email is aidan@chainsafe.io. So yeah, hi, my name is Aidan Hymen. I'm co-founder and CEO of ChainSafe Systems. We're a blockchain research and development shop based in Toronto. And yeah, for the past 2 and a bit years, we've worked with clients to implement a lot of kind of their tech infrastructure, while also realizing that in order to realize a lot of the things that our clients need, we need to contribute to the open source ecosystem and really make sure that this technology scales in the way that it promised when we joined the community 3 years ago or whatever. So my partner Preem is here as well. So if anyone wants to say hi to us, please say hi. So yeah, just a little bit about us and a few of the projects we're working on. Start with Lodestar. So Lodestar is a TypeScript implementation of the beacon chain. So the beacon chain is phase 0 of the ETH 2.0 roadmap. And so basically, it's one of the pieces that will allow Ethereum to scale. And yeah, we're working on the TypeScript implementation of that. Parity is also working on a Rust implementation of that. So yeah, it's extremely exciting. It uses a bunch of different libraries that we've had to work on. Simple serialize is just the encoding and decoding library that's used. BLS.js, which is the signature aggregation that's used. And then Gossip Sub.js, which is what we use for networking. And then why we're here today, Gossamer. So Gossamer is the Golang implementation of the Polkadot runtime environment. So if you go back to kind of Jack's slides and you look at what that parachain kind of square was, that's what this will allow you to build, but in Go. So for us, it's really important to make things as usable for as many developers as possible. And what we've found is that JavaScript, TypeScript, and Go are really those languages that really are able to kind of create as much accessibility to as many developers as possible, while still providing really important features within a programming language. There's a couple of really exciting pieces. There's Grandpa, which is the proof of stake consensus. There's Life, which is the WASM interpreter. And there's Go libp2p, which is the networking protocol that's used. And then there's the Girly testnet, which we launched a couple months ago. It's the first cross-client proof of authority testnet within the Ethereum ecosystem. And basically what that means is that once upon a time where only one client, so going back to what Jack said, when you have a diverse amount of clients, that also means that things like testnets don't necessarily interoperate with one another. And so what we worked on starting at ETH Berlin was a project that would ensure that multiple clients could run the same testnet, which doesn't sound too exciting, but to developers, it is, I think. And then ChainBridge. So ChainBridge is a modular cross-blockchain bridge, and what it allows for is an n amount of blockchains to communicate with one another and transfer data. So whereas a lot of bridges are only focused on ERC20 transfer or general token transfer, this is a really modular bridge that's written in Go, so really easy for people to kind of use and implement. And yeah, we've found that people like it. And so how did we get here to building out this Polkadot runtime environment thing? So basically, over 1.5 years ago, we started working with clients to implement sidechains. So what is a sidechain? So usually sidechains are a fork of Ethereum, and what they provide is basically an application-specific environment. But they also require a bridge to interoperate with different blockchains. And without that, there kind of is no use case because there is no access to pre-existing developer tooling. There is no access to, markets and just different things that are really necessary to bootstrap a blockchain. And so this is kind of like the really high level idea of what a bridge is. So you can deposit something, arbitrary token or data, which is just a token. The bridge instance, which is just a server sitting somewhere, is monitoring that contract, and then it allows for withdraw on another side. So pretty simple, and it allows the other way as well. So I'm just going to talk about a couple use cases that we've worked on over the past year and a half specifically, and why, again, this really matters to us and what's really exciting about Polkadot in this context. So example one is a local community governed blockchain. And what is that actually, what is the requirements of that? So for this specific use case, it was a bartering economy that exists in Toronto. It has over 2 million participants within different groups all over the internet. And they migrated to an app, and they have over 300,000 users that wanted access to blockchain technology to allow for the bartering problem to be solved, which doesn't allow for exchange of goods. That's why money was invented, basically. It's because bartering doesn't work. And so they needed a unique consensus mechanism, whereas the stores themselves that are actually accepting these tokens are the ones who own the network, while also allowing for the interoperability with Ethereum and other networks, and allowing for high transactions per second. So what is this unique consensus? So in this case, it's a permission proof of stake where only the store owners themselves are allowed to stake to be a part of this network and validate it. And right now, there are over 150 businesses in Canada that accept this token. And so, they stake to validate the network. And the stores, they pay transaction fees. And then the consensus itself is maintained through the economic incentives that exist within these different stores. So you can think about it, that this is money that otherwise people would not have the ability to spend in these stores. So why wouldn't a store want to accept it? And so what does interoperability look like? It really, at this point, just looked like transferring a token to the Ethereum mainnet and back. So pretty simple. And because it's a trusted use case where we know the actors and we know people, we're able to allow for a high transaction throughput. And so what did we have to do to make this happen? So we had to fork Geth, which didn't necessarily have and didn't provide the things that were necessary to do this. We didn't need an entire EVM. We didn't need a lot of the things that come with Geth. And we used the parity bridge to do this, to allow for the interoperability. And then we implemented a unique proof of stake that hasn't been rolled out, so there's no name for it or anything exciting. And what did we learn from this? And what lessons are we bringing kind of through our experience to the Polkadot ecosystem? What we learned is that there's a need for more modular consensus. There's a need to allow for different people to govern themselves in ways that they decide, that their communities decide. We can't prescribe for the world how they're going to govern themselves, and we shouldn't. Hybrid models are necessary for scale. We need to understand that people are going to solve their problems in ways that actually solve their problems and they solve their problems today and don't necessarily promise a future that is, all roses. And then another thing that, who knew, a local blockchain, a blockchain that only really exists right now in Canada, can be extremely successful with over 150 stores, over 300,000 users, and over $1 million has been spent by people in stores in under a year. So it's been extremely successful from a user, perspective. Example 2, an interoperable attestation network. So what were the requirements for this? Well, a proof of attestation through an opcode. So again, we had to fork Geth, but this time adding a lot of functionality to the EVM itself. unique consensus mechanism. Again, we had to solve a problem for the users and not for, a future that doesn't exist yet. And then interoperability with multiple networks. We needed to ensure that, this network can actually interact with a bunch of different blockchains and not just Ethereum. So what does a proof of attestation look like from a technical perspective? Well, this looked like adding an opcode to Geth. So you could literally do this on a base layer. And so that meant adding that to Sol-C, which is the compiler for Solidity, and then also to Remix itself, which is the online IDE that allows for people to write smart contracts. Because again, we needed to make all of this compatible with the new opcode. And so what did that unique consensus mechanism look like? So at first we looked at auth hash. So auth hash is a proof of work consensus mechanism that basically whitelists people to only allow, if you can think about it like validators from a POS perspective, to be the ones mining. And we realized that there was so much technical debt in trying to implement something to Geth that we just stuck with POW, and it just really didn't make sense. Even though, it might have made sense if there was an easier way to implement it. And so interoperability with multiple networks. So again, like this isn't just about transferring ERC20s, but allowing for this data, this attestation, to be transacted across multiple networks so that people can use it within any kind of blockchain use case. And so, this was not native to the blockchain itself, which again, Polkadot kind of does differently in that, we had to implement a bridge, a really exciting bridge in my opinion, but still a piece of software that existed above the blockchain itself. And so what did we have to do? Again, we had to implement this bridge, we had to fork Geth, and we had to implement a unique consensus mechanism that we didn't necessarily end up even using because of the EVM constraints. And so what did we learn from this? We learned that we need, again, more modular blockchain components. And what does that mean? That means from an infrastructure perspective, we need to have blockchains that are built from the ground up with the idea that people will fork it and people will add functionality that they need to solve their own problems, which, Ethereum wasn't built to do necessarily. Again, hybrid models are possible. We don't need to have this prescribed kind of understanding of what governance has to look like. We can experiment and we can play with different exciting and creative ideas. And another huge thing is that the only real upstream PR from all of the forking we did was Control-S in Remix. So before we started working on this, Control-S would save the page in Remix, which would drive everyone crazy. And so what we did was just make it, one of our partners made it so that Control-S just recompile the contract. So after all of this work, over a year of building stuff in the open source, like literally on GitHub for the entire world to see, all that made its way back upstream was Control-S and Remix, right? So what we're trying to do with Polkadot is ensure that these components that we're building, that we're working on every day, that are open source, are able to be used by different people however they deem necessary. And so interoperability, kind of to highlight that point, is only as useful as it is usable, right? So we need this technology to be usable not just by ourselves, but by the ecosystem, so that we as kind of developers can work with that ecosystem and bring on contributors and incredible developers and empower them to take part in our ecosystem that we're building with them. And so Polkadot. So I have a couple different things from the white paper that I thought were really important. Some things that Jack highlighted as well. I think that these are really important things just to clarify and just make sure that the world sees them in the way that we're intending, at least for this technology, to be used. And so yeah, going back even to how Polkadot is described, it's a vision for a heterogeneous multi-chain framework. That's a really powerful statement. And that's very different than ETH 2.0. So ETH 2.0 is a homogeneous sharding scheme. Basically, shards are exactly the same. Maybe not what's actually going on them, but technically they're exactly the same. The heterogeneous kind of vision for Polkadot is that you as developers or as entrepreneurs can build incredible things and not be constrained to the technical debt of decisions people made years before you, because that doesn't really make any sense for you to kind of want to be a part of that ecosystem if you're constrained by a huge amount of technical debt. So Ethereum as a parachain, it's really important to see that Polkadot, is another scaling solution for Ethereum. Not only is it being built to provide that scalability through a parachain to something like Ethereum, but it's providing scalability in an interoperable way. So now we have a Zcash parachain, we have an Ethereum parachain, and through inter-blockchain messaging, we can actually now deploy smart contracts that are interacting with something in the Zcash network, something in the Bitcoin network, in a way that we had only ever dreamed of previously. So what does this kind of trust-free Bitcoin bridge look like? So it could be something as simple as, and again, all of these are pulled from the white paper itself. If you haven't read it, I highly recommend it. It's extremely readable and extremely kind of empowering to realize kind of where this technology is going. And so yeah, it could be something as simple as a multi-signature, a multi-sig kind of wallet on the Bitcoin blockchain that utilizes kind of proofs to then allow for things to happen within the entire Polkadot ecosystem. So, really exciting, and again, will allow us to do stuff within Ethereum, Bitcoin, and all these other different blockchains through Polkadot as that kind of intermediary. And so this is from the FAQ in the white paper itself, and I think this is, written in a really cool way. Is Polkadot designed to replace insert blockchain here? Absolutely not. What it's supposed to do is empower those different blockchain communities to be a part of a wider ecosystem, a heterogeneous world where you're not constrained by your own expertise and by your own use case, but instead are, again, empowered to be a part of this wider ecosystem that allows your technology to have access to so many different use cases, all over the world. And again, is Polkadot designed to replace insert cryptocurrency here? Again, absolutely not. Dots are intended to be staked. They're intended to be used in a way that's not necessarily liquid, like different cryptocurrencies. It's meant to be used to actually, do a lot of the things that we talked about, that kind of I've mentioned earlier. So, this is very much a utility to actually be able to interact with what I think is, and I think, is the future of the interoperable blockchain world. And for us, that's super exciting because the work that we do every single day can now be a part of something bigger. We can now start building parachains for clients and different partners, and be building this in a way where we're building the actual ecosystem every single day with different exciting projects, instead of building these isolated projects that require different pieces of technology just to interoperate with these different exciting projects. I kind of went through my slides really fast, which is not a problem because we were running a little bit, like 5–10 minutes late. This is my Twitter. I use the ChainSafe one. So follow us if you want to see all the exciting stuff that we do every day. My email again is aidan@chainsafe.io. If you have any questions, you want to talk, you want to contribute to the Golang Polkadot runtime environment, whatever it is you want to do, yeah, send me an email. Our website is chainsafe.io, and that's our account. So just get rid of the systems, and that's our organization. You can check us out and see all the stuff we've worked on in the past over 2 years. We're completely open source. Everything we do is transparent. You can see what we worked on today if you think I'm just talking shit. And go and, and get involved. See, a good first issue get in, contribute to something, and just be a part of the ecosystem, because it is really that simple. There is nothing stopping you from becoming a core contributor, an actual, key part of this ecosystem. And yeah, that's it for me. Thank you so much for having me. Again, it was a lot quicker than I expected. I'll have to add some more slides for the next one. But yeah, are there any questions? Yeah, please.
Actually, use two slides to say we're just here from the government, we're here to help. We're not here to replace you. I said that twice.
I mean, so one was for blockchains themselves, and one was for cryptocurrencies. So these are two different things.
I'm quite old, so I was around at a time when there were actually many different types of networking protocols. The big ones were Bitcoin, Novell, those IBM talking with, and there's SNA, which is still around. Most people don't realize 70% of the transactions actually end up in an SNA protocol. But internet came in to connect, so TCP came in to interconnect all those so they can work together. But it actually ended up killing them all. So there's basically one dominant protocol in the world now. And the last messages of SNA over TCP and TCP over SNA are still fighting it out. But so you have, basically, if you succeed in this, you have, if we look at the analogy with what happened in the networking world, you have a chance of actually doing exactly what you said you're going to do.
I mean, I don't find that analogy to be at all relevant, to be honest with you, to the current paradigm, because the whole point of this is to provide scalability. I mean, not only parity, but our company is literally invested in the future of multiple blockchains. So for that to be a reality would be bad for my business, and it would be bad for many different businesses that are invested in this. So I suggest going and looking at the different partners building out this ecosystem, partaking in Polkadot in this kind of mission, and seeing that they're actually heavily invested in a lot of different things, and not just in kind of what you're saying.
So I don't think it's a good or bad thing. I don't have an opinion whether it's good or bad. TCP took them out because that's the easiest to manage one.
I mean, if that's the reality, then Polkadot failed. So I mean, I absolutely do not subscribe to that messaging or reality, and my job every day is ensuring that that is not a reality. So absolutely, it is very important for me to stress that this is not here to replace cryptocurrencies. This is not here to replace blockchains. This is here to empower collaboration amongst different communities that are right now really tribalist and siloed off from one another, and don't have that ability to communicate and really collaborate with one another. So I mean, I absolutely do not agree with that analogy, and am working every day to make sure that that is not the future of blockchain. Because I'm here, and a lot of people here are literally here to disintermediate a lot of the things that we see every single day. And one blockchain does not disintermediate that internet, right? That is not this. I mean, you understand what I'm saying. By one blockchain proliferating, we fail in that original goal of disintermediating a lot of the things that I believe take advantage of people every single day. So I'm going to make sure that that's not the future. Is there any other questions?
I have a question to the Polkadot user. What's the utility of the DOS token in relation to the Parachain?
So you're going to stake dots to be a parachain. So it's quite, just from a high level, pretty simple, but also very complex once you get under it.
I mean, because my thinking is, if there is a Parachain that has its own token or whatever you call it, and it utilizes Polkadot as the relay chain, how does the fee structure then look like? I mean, there has to be probably certain fee paid by the DOS token. I guess the users of the Parachain will not pay the DOS fee.
Yeah, please.
So the DOT token has four different. The DOT token has four different features, or fulfills four different roles in Polkadot. So one is as Aidan said, so operation. So it's a proof of stake system. You stake dots to be a validator. You can also nominate to have someone stake on your behalf, or you can be a collator. Second is governance. So it's on-chain governance. All dot holders essentially control updates to the network, or rollbacks or anything like that. And third is fees. So as you were saying, if parachains want to speak to each other, they need to pay validators on the relay chain to get their message from their blockchain to another blockchain, and that's paid in the dot token. And then the last one's bonding for parachains. So to be a parachain, like one of the 80 parachains initially in Polkadot, you stake dots. So you lock up, say, 1,000 dot tokens for the right to be a parachain on Polkadot. And then you get the dot tokens back at the end. So it's like you're kind of paying, like the fee is opportunity cost, because there's inflation in the network, say 5% inflation. So it's kind of an opportunity cost. So it's not exactly a fee, but it locks up more dots. So those are the four roles of dot tokens.
So if I understand it correctly, if I am a user on a Parachain and I want to create transactions to another chain, so that means send a message, I will do it in the native token of that Parachain, and it will be subtracted from the token count sent by the Parachain as well.
You pay for the message passing in dots. That's right. So passing messaging is just anytime you engage the validators on the relay chain, it's relatively expensive. So you could theoretically pay in a different token down the line, but right now it'll just be dot tokens. Yeah, so the parachain is like, the parachain doesn't even have to have a token. It doesn't even have to be a blockchain technically, but it can have a token, absolutely. It makes it easy to have a token, but there's no interaction necessarily.
Thanks, Jack. Yeah, does anyone have any other questions? We're also, yeah, please. No, so we're just building out the Polkadot runtime environment itself. So Substrate would be, a framework that Sean will go into a little bit later. But there's actually in the Medium article that if you Google search Web3 Foundation ChainSafe, there's a really good Medium article that explains exactly what a Polkadot runtime environment is, what Substrate is in a way that I'm not going to be able to articulate to you in 10 seconds, but I would read that article, and it does an incredible job of explaining the difference between those two things. But short answer, no. It's a completely different piece of software. Yeah, so my partner Preem and I are going to be here until Saturday. We're going to be at the Economy. If anyone wants to talk, yeah, let us know. Send us an email. Say hi. We'd love to chat. Thank you so much.